Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie. And if you are struggling in a high conflict relationship, divorce, custody battle, or co parenting situation that requires individualized attention, let Chris and Lisa at Been There Got Out hold your hand along the way while providing expert strategic guidance based on one's years of success as a pro se, coupled with the other's high conflict divorce coach certification. Go to beentheregotout.com and I will put that in the podcast notes. I have a return guest. She was on season 1, episode 17. Her name is Heidi Weber. She has been dealing with CPS and she's got more going on that she's going to update us with. So how are you, Heidi?
Well, I am doing very well, actually. I'm doing very well. We are in the middle of a federal case. I could not let it slide. My children are all over 18 at this point, but gosh, where do I even start with this? I was a whistleblower, several years ago and fought for students. I was a dean of a college and fought for students' rights, for them to not be defrauded by the school. And so I went through a long legal case with that, 3 to 5 years, and went through a 7-day trial against this school network, national network that I worked for, and the jury was unanimous in my favor. I had found several ethical issues and that sort of thing. Um, Flash forward, that was in 2013, so my case finally settled in 15. Flash forward, uh, just last year, actually, it's been a little over a year now. My youngest daughter was 17 years and 8 months. So 17 years old and 8 months. So 4 months from being 18. Uh, a star student, honor student, the youngest one. Um, she was captain of the dance team, uh, and just she never gave us any trouble. She had epilepsy, and so she was actually kind of a shining star because she uh, was captain of the dance team and did all these athletic things and overcame epilepsy. So it was great. She's a good kid. All of a sudden, I get CPS knocking at my door, and it wasn't devastating to me because I worked in clinical for so long. I'm a mandatory reporter, and I've worked in the clinical environment, and I've dealt with CPS before. So I know, the basic outline of what they're all about. I know that they have to respond to abuse or neglect. Those are the two criteria that they respond to, correct? Right, Marianne? You know that too.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I know, right? So they come knocking at my door, and I'm thinking, okay, well, um, this is crazy. I thought that they were coming in response to actually help because let me go back just a few weeks before they come knocking on my door. In March of 2020, my young husband, who was healthy, doing great, he's had high blood pressure, had a stroke after COVID. So that was pretty devastating. Uh, we had just gotten him home, and he and our youngest daughter were in a car accident that totaled my car on the way to the doctor for a follow-up.
Oh my
Um, it,
goodness.
yeah, it wasn't their fault, but my youngest daughter was driving, and it wasn't their fault, but still it totaled my car. And then 2 weeks after that, my daughter ended up having an emergency appendectomy, and they
Mm.
think it was from the seatbelt from the car, but that wasn't, you're not sure. CPS came knocking at my door one day after she returned home from surgery. And, she had had, visits with the physician. You have to get cleared to have surgery, obviously, when I took her to the ER. So she had had these exams with these physician, the surgeon and the regular doctor. And they cleared her. Nothing was ever said about anything. She's doing great. She'd had her surgery. She's at home recovering. I get a knock from CPS. I'm thinking, oh, somebody in the community is just worried about us because we had had an outpouring of just people with great cards and wanting to help GoFundMe.
Mhm.
It was great. It was really well. That stopped immediately. Um, there was one anonymous report, I guess, alleging that there were concerns for drug use by me and my husband in our home. And I thought, what, wait, what? What?
That's
No.
terrible.
So then me as a dummy, I didn't learn anything about CPS. I the real deal about CPS, I'm still this naive person like everybody else out there and trust them and,
Mhm.
oh, they're there for kids. They'll figure this out. So I think, okay, well, I'll schedule a visit, have them come to my home so they can see what our home looks like and see us and speak with us and all that. Um, so they come in and she brings a deputy sheriff with her that day, the CPS
Mm.
intake worker. She's not a social worker. She's an intake worker. In Wisconsin, you do not have to be a social worker to do this job, make these decisions, evidently. And yeah, so that's getting up to the visit part. Um, it was it was the most horrifying experience I've ever had in my life.
Mm.
The interview, thank goodness, was recorded because the deputy sheriff had a cam, body cam, but although the video wasn't on, the audio was on, so at least have that. There's, I argue with the intake worker saying, there's an allegation of drug use isn't enough. You're not going to come in my home and, accuse me of this and tell me I need to be forced to take a drug test. I said, first of all, you're not a licensed lab person. I know that from, I'm a clinic
Mhm.
person. I'm a medical assistant, board certified. So I know that there's a lot of stipulation around that. And I don't trust this woman.
No.
I'm not doing a drug test for you. I don't have any history. Neither my husband or I have any arrests or drug history or alcohol history or mental health. Well, I probably have mental health now after all this, but
Who wouldn't?
um, really, it's horrifying. So she asked me to take a drug test. I refused. And she's not even addressing my husband the whole time. He's recovering from a stroke and he's actually doing pretty good at that point.
Aw.
And he's able to walk and talk and do all the things he's supposed to, Um, but she wasn't even addressing him. It was like he wasn't even there, like he was invisible.
Mhm.
It was all aimed at me. And I said, I didn't deny it. I just said, until I can talk to an attorney. Well, come to find out, she says, well, I need to take your daughter then. Wait, what? What do you mean?
What is this, Nazi Germany?
Well, I said,
Ah.
take my daughter. What? She goes, well, since you won't do a drug test right now on the spot, and the deputy sheriff is silent, get this at this point, he's
Oh,
quiet,
no.
She said, I need to I need to take her. She's gonna need to go stay with her older sister, my oldest daughter. And my oldest daughter and I are not currently getting along. I mean, I try. She chose money over her relationship with us
Mhm.
and went behind my back last year and talked my mother, who has dementia, into writing us basically out of her will and replacing me with my oldest daughter.
Oh.
And so we were just getting ready to fight that battle because, you know, I I just am devastated. I was devastated over
Mm.
that.
Mm-mm.
I couldn't believe that she had done that. And, but, go to, otherwise, all three of my daughters are great kids. They were never in trouble. They followed the rules. I didn't have to, they just were great kids when they were here.
Mm.
So I believe, I'm not for sure, but I believe that this call has something to do with my oldest daughter
Mhm. Mhm.
trying to discredit me so that if we did go to court, it would be some kind of, you know, anyway,
Mhm.
the caseworker just uh, just tells me she's taking my daughter and I have to sign some protective plan or whatever, some safety plan. Oh, that's funny because she calls it a safety plan
Mm.
when you're in your home, and then later on it becomes this ominous protection plan. So it's funny how they manipulate words, Marianne. They
Oh,
just
I know it. Well,
um,
they twist everything to fit their own narrative so they can steal from the parent and get more from the state.
absolutely. And I don't know where they go to school to learn how to document like this. I was just reading through some of these papers because we're in the middle of a court case with them. But um, so I'll get into that in a second here. So anyway, um,
Oh my goodness.
I'm bawling at this point. I mean, I am just devastated. It was like 2 weeks before this. She's giving a speech at her dance recital thing that says, "Thank you, Mom and Dad, for everything you've done for me. Thank you for everything." But she's crying at this point.
Mm,
Um, the deputy sheriff finally steps up and says, he wants a tour of our home.
mm,
So I said, okay, I have no problem with that, fine, because it was getting kind of heated. And so he's trying to diffuse it. So we give him and this gal a tour. And by the way, I live in Wisconsin. So if anybody has a Wisconsin case and you've been persecuted by them, please get a hold of me, please, please,
mhm.
because you can sure help and I can help you, hopefully. So anyway, give him a tour. The deputy sheriff turns to my husband and I and says, "I find no probable cause here for anything. And I'm closing my end of this file the minute I get back to the office."
Hmm.
So I'm like, ding, 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 jackpot. That should be clearance right there.
Right.
Um, the law enforcement with her says there's no, and the only allegation is a concern for drug use. So if they're clearing
Mm.
us, that shouldn't have been an issue. Nope, she interrupts him and says, "Jana, go get your things. I'm still taking her, still sending her over to her daughter's,
Hey,
my daughter's
Heidi,
oldest." Yes, ma'am.
what would happen if your daughter would have dug her heels in and said, "No, I'm staying here with mom. I'm not going with you. Get out of here."
I don't know. I don't know because I think, you know, the I think she had plays a part in this too, obviously. But she's a minor. She was 17, yeah, she's 17 and she definitely, is not. She also was, because of the issue with my daughter and I, she doesn't get to see her that often. And I think she really missed her sisters. I really do.
Mm.
I think she thought, oh, well, this won't go that far or whatever. I,
Oh
I
my
think
goodness.
it was one of those deals where she stepped in it and kind of went along with it because she didn't want to admit that, maybe she lied or told somebody a story or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and I fully believe that. I have a text from her the night before this saying, "I love you, Mom and Dad. I'm in a lot of pain from surgery. Will you come lay with me or snuggle with me?" Which
Oh,
Matt, my husband, did. We take turns, but so I mean, I have texts all the way up until the night before, and then um, that was a little over a year ago. Marianne, I haven't seen her since. That was the last day I
this
saw
is
her and
terrible.
talked to her. They would not allow us to have any visitation. Couldn't even write her a letter. Couldn't go to her graduation.
Mm.
Um, it was devastating. I cried every night for months, because I just could not believe my children were doing this to me. Um, and she has, my oldest daughter then, of course, had a hold of her because she was at her house. And my husband went over to get her a couple weeks later saying, "This protective plan or whatever it is crap.
Mhm.
It's not a court order. It's just an agreement, and we still have all of our parental rights, which we did, and we still do, or whatever, up until the end because our case was dismissed ultimately. But after they put us through hell and destroyed my relationship with my kids, but completely.
Mhm.
She was my baby, Marianne. I haven't talked to her for over a year, and
This is
um,
heartbreaking.
it really is because it's not right. It really is not right. So I went in during this time. I'm going to start crying. No, I'm not going to cry.
No, you
I
won't. You
can
know
hold
what?
this together. Yeah.
Um,
I went in. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, like even as I think backward, if I go back in time and I think, what if as soon as I entered the door and started this BS, I should have just
I know.
called the lawyer and ran the whole case right into federal court right then and there. I mean, I just
Mhm.
wonder what would have happened.
I know. Well, my husband is really good at doing that whole what if business, and I try and not do that. I try and stay away from that
Hmm.
because that's very dangerous. That's a slippery slope. There's nothing I can do to change, that day. I mean, my God, my husband had just had a stroke. I have, we lost half our income because he had a stroke, and
Mm.
he was just changing jobs, so there's no disability or anything like
Mm.
that. There's just me. Um, we just had a lot going on. Jana's going to college. Our other daughter, our middle daughter, was graduating from college that year, and I had paid for half her rent, half the year. But it was just devastating, and I was not in a good place. And I think that the CPS people were, I'm thinking they're there to help families, to
Mhm.
give us services. And I'm asking them saying, if somebody is alleging this, if it's my girls, please get us counseling. I could use counseling. I I'm not doing very well dealing with all this stuff. But
Mhm.
there were no services offered, nothing. They did
Mhm.
not investigate. They didn't talk to any of our neighbors, anybody that knows us or talks to us. They didn't look into any background. They just automatically pulled at the hip. Oh, here's my kitty in the background here. He's naughty too. Um, anyway, the officer had said there's no probable cause, and she said, well, I'm still going to take her, and she put just for a couple of days until I can finish my investigation. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm trying to be reasonable here and go, maybe that, okay. My husband is getting pissed at this point, and he's saying, fine, take her. If she really thinks it's that bad here, then let her go. Maybe she'll realize how good she has it, here or whatever. And anybody would feel that way. I mean, if you don't know, if your kids are coming after you or whatever.
Mhm.
So long story short, remember I told you she had just had her appendix out the day before.
Mhm.
So she's on pain meds and whatever, and has epilepsy, so she takes medicine. Um, they walk her out the door. I go out 15 minutes later and her car's gone.
Mhm.
They put her behind the wheel of her car alone without us knowing during COVID on pain medication because I asked her right before on the recorded line, from the police or from the deputy sheriff, if she has her pain medication from surgery, and they hear this loud and clear, they still put her behind the wheel to drive
Not
all the way
safe.
across state lines an hour over to my oldest daughter's house in Minnesota.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we find this out, of course, if you're not cleared by the doctor, this as a nurse, if you're not
Mhm.
cleared by the doctor to drive, your insurance doesn't cover anything. So if she would have gotten in an accident, it would have been, we would have been responsible because she's a minor. And so it would have been my husband and I that would be paying the bill. Not
Mhm.
to mention she's upset, she's crying, and you're sitting there telling me that you're worried about her safety and you're putting her in the car
Mhm.
in a
Mhm.
hazardous, that was ridiculous. So
Mhm.
hang on just a second here.
Mhm.
Hang on. Sorry. Sorry about that. Okay.
Okay.
Um, so I'm sitting there, my head is spinning. I don't even know what to say. I'm sitting there
Mhm.
looking at half my income. I can't afford a lawyer right now. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Mhm.
Matt and I sit down and he's trying to calm me down. I I start writing complaints. I wrote a complaint all the way up to the director. I said, I'm worried about this person's judgment. This was not okay. There was no reason, no warrant to take my child. This should have never happened. Um, what is going on? No response, none.
Mhm.
Didn't even acknowledge that nothing. Then a couple days later, the caseworker, this same caseworker that was worried about, they don't take her off the case. I had requested, I said, well, now that I've written an official complaint, she's going to retaliate against me. So we need to have a different caseworker. Clearly,
Mhm.
her decision-making process is not okay.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
We need to give a fair shake. And I said, she wouldn't let us talk to her daughter. We couldn't even talk to her. I go out on Mother's Day a couple days later, and here's flowers and a card in our post office box.
Hmm.
In our post office. It's from our youngest daughter. I thought, well, why would she leave it in our post office box and not call me or come in, the house and it says, Mom, I love you. Well, we get the file back later on and they told her not to talk to us expressly. So she's trying to give me a covert message saying, I love you, Mom,
Oh.
while it's still early. Anyway, they let her drive off. She goes off. We don't talk to her for 2 weeks. Pretty soon, the next things we're starting to hear is there's a no contact order and then there's neglect now, and all these things start getting added to our case, and there's no justification for it. I go in and research law, and I find out that this case, this county here in Wisconsin, and I live in Pierce County, Wisconsin, which is right by the Twin Cities, right on the border, has a 58% of out-of-home placements. 58%, Marianne.
Mm.
And just to give you a reference, the next county, right, the adjacent county right north of us here, um, has a 7%.
Mm.
And the state average for Wisconsin is 12%.
Mm.
So there's something wrong here. I don't know how to read these reports, but that big of a difference. The state average is 12%, and it's 58, almost 60% here. So I start doing some more digging. I find all kinds of data that's public for everybody to look at. So I encourage you, if you have a CPS case, I've told Marianne this too, go into your state or your county website and go look at their reports. They have to publish their reports to the feds. Any data that the state does or the county does especially has to go to the feds. It's every other year, I
Mhm.
believe. It's biannual, and you're going to get a whole lot of information there that's really frightening.
Mhm.
Another piece of information I pulled from there was 35% of cases have any evidence at all in Wisconsin. So 35%, and yet 58% of them are getting their kids ripped out of their home. So, me, I'm just the quiet one, I'm starting to get pissed at this point. It's the longer this goes on, I'm still sad. I mean, even to this day, it makes me sick to my stomach that this happened because I feel like I was robbed of the last 3 months or 4 months with my daughter in the
Mm.
last year. But the whole thing, I started doing more as I got more data and more research. I started getting more angry, and they started doing more and more terrible things to cover up for the things they were doing before.
Mm.
So, and I want to reiterate again, I have no history of any drug use, no history of alcohol use. I'm board certified. I've been a whistleblower for ethics. I've saved thousands of students. Um, I I just was blown away. So we get to a temporary custody hearing. The judge rubber stamps it because clearly he's spoken to the caseworker long before we ever got to the hearing. The hearing is via Zoom with our house in the background. They can see our home and see, how terrible it is and how unlivable it is,
Mm.
which it's not. We live in a brand new home on a golf course. Um,
Mhm.
and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, somehow the system's got to work, right? I
Mhm.
mean, I won a jury trial before, and I'm thinking, okay, the system does work. I know it's broken in a few places, but somebody's going to catch this somewhere down the line and see, well, wait a minute, there's no evidence, there's no history, there's no probable cause,
Mhm.
and and no, nope, we get to the temporary custody hearing. I'm faced with 3 lawyers against us and caseworkers. By the time the case was over, there was 9 people earning a paycheck off this case. 9 people. And you know what? Not a
Mm.
single one of them ever spoke to either one of us during the entire time.
Mm.
And so we have a permanency plan that was written a week before she turned 18 that says how mentally ill we are and how crazy we are and how we need to submit to follicle drug testing and go for treatment, and it's written by 2 social workers who I have never spoke to in my life, nor is my husband.
But they were
So
caseworkers, right? They didn't have a social work degree.
no, the 2 that wrote the permanency plan I've
Oh.
never met before. They have never met them. I've never spoke with them ever, not
Mm.
even once. And they're writing all these things as if they know us, and they're lying. I mean, blatant lies. it's
Mhm.
it's just, and the only allegation was a concern for an allegation of drug use, a concern, and there was nothing found here. And then they sit there and write these things like how crazy I am. Well, you know what? Yeah, I'm freaking crazy because you took my kid and you shouldn't have. And I've gone through hell over the
Mm.
last month. Yeah, I'm freaking crazy. And you should be educated enough to be able to be compassionate and understand that.
Mm. No, they're not. Oh, they're
They're
not.
not.
Mm-mm.
So in the middle of this, my husband's fed up. I mean, he's fed up. He's going to get Jana. We find out she's staying overnight at her boyfriend's house, and so they're not supervising her at all. They're without any, uh, you know, they're concerned for her safety, but yet she's running all over everywhere, whatever.
Mm.
Um, so he goes to pick her up. Yet he calls the police in Minnesota so that there's no altercation. I mean, we don't want to have any issue with our other daughter or anything
Mm.
like that. Just quietly, you go over there, the police come, they go in the house, and of course, my daughters get this caseworker, this original caseworker, who is not a social worker, on the phone. She lies to the police officer, says she's a social worker, and that there's an order, makes it sound like there's a police order, and that he needs to put a police hold on our daughter so that we can't take her.
Mm.
And at this point, there's no restriction to our parental rights. We're still her
Mm.
parents. There's no court orders. There was no emergency. He didn't witness anything. My husband was very respectful, and there wasn't any emergent. We don't have any history of any violence or anything. And he believes her and writes up a police hold on her. Sends my husband away. So my husband leaves quietly, disheartened. He tried explaining it to him too. I get on the phone with them and I'm pissed at this point. And I said, why would you put a police hold on her? What reason did you have to put a police hold on her? There's
Mm.
no emergency. There's
Mm.
no violence in our family. And I said, he goes, well, her social worker told me to. I said, wait a minute. She's not a social worker. And secondly, she has no jurisdiction in Minnesota, even if she was.
Mm.
And thirdly, um, there's no probable cause. There's no reason for you, there's no emergency, put it that way. Well, he
Mm.
got real quiet after that, the police officer, which he's part of my suit too, because that's a violation of our parental rights,
Mm.
like whether he knew it or not. So, long story short, we get to her 18th birthday. The permanency plan comes a week before she turns 18. 4 months she's been in foster care with these foster parents because they did a temporary custody and took her out of my daughter's home and brought her back over to Wisconsin without any orders or anything,
Mm.
and then railroaded me at the temporary custody hearing, writing things like she thought she was going to starve if she didn't buy her own food, and she would run away if she came home again. She's never run away or even got close to that. She was actually very, very sweet. I mean, she loved being with us, and she was a great kid. And I just can't even I don't even know who this person is. I have texts from her saying how much she loves us, and now at this point, the last I heard, she never wants to speak to us again. So whoever has been programming her, working on her throughout this whole situation, we had applied for college and paid her registrations, and I think, why would she even run away? That doesn't even make sense. She's going to college in 3 months. If she was None of this makes any sense. So I put out an email even to all these people. The foster parents are police officers in the next town. So there's no conflict of interest there in the same county. They're
Mm.
getting paid to keep our daughter, who's
Mm.
also a handy dandy babysitter for their 4 kids, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Um, and I start following the money tree. Now all of a sudden I'm seeing this money line. I go to the board, the county board, and I'm like, I have to file a case. I have to. I'm tired. I'm really tired. That whistleblower case took everything out of me. And I mean, yeah, it saved 10,000, tens of thousands of students, but it was, just being a whistleblower sucks.
Mhm.
Going through all of that was, even though you're telling the truth, it's devastating, life-wise. But I'm sitting here at this point, my husband and I are talking. I said, I can't just let this go. Yeah, I know she's 18, but I, this is wrong. They've destroyed my relationship. They can't do this to anybody else. I have to stop this, or at least die trying.
Mhm.
She lied to the police officer, for God's sake. And he actually documented that. He documented that she called herself a social worker. So
Mm.
in Wisconsin, that's against the law, by the way. In most states, it is actually.
Mhm.
You can't represent yourself as something you're not, obviously. Um, so now I'm going to file a court case. can't find a lawyer
Mm.
because it's a specialized court case and nobody wants to take on the
They
county.
don't. Yeah, they know. No one does. I don't know why.
Yeah. Even as egregious as my case was, and I mean, I'm telling you, there is not one thing that they did per protocol or that was on the up and up because I have no history of anything with Wisconsin, nothing. And it was just, it's like they messed up on every single part of it. My complaint, they acknowledged that the director received it, but nobody ever responded to it. I even went to the governor, Marianne. I wrote a letter to the governor. I wrote letters to legislate. I copied everyone I could. I got a response, two responses back from the governor, actually saying I needed to follow the complaint process, and I did months ago. I just nobody would listen to me, so said, fine, I'll file a case and I'll take it as far as it'll go. I'm not a lawyer and I don't claim to be one. And it's devastating. And I wish, because it's a constitutional law, where we filed a federal case that they are violating our constitutional rights, which is pretty common, isn't it? Most
Yeah.
CPS cases are federal right, yeah, civil
Hmm.
rights violations. So I filed the case and it has not gotten thrown out. I've been trying to study with your help and everybody else trying to learn about this. And we're in discovery process right now. And we actually have trial set for October of 2022 in Wisconsin here. And um, I I have all this evidence and I feel so much better if I had an attorney, but I can't afford one right now and nobody wants to take on the county. Um, I would add that the judge mysteriously retired briefly,
That sounds
right after my
convenient.
case. Yeah, isn't that great? And we went
Yeah.
through two or three DAs in that 4 or 5 month period in the county here. So they're all trying to catch each other up, and nobody knows where it's at. And they finally dismissed the case. They they started charging us. They still have charged us thousands of dollars. Said you take my child illegally and then you charge me for it. I can only imagine how scared Jana was, our
Uh,
daughter. I can only imagine how much she was programmed that in the files, in discovery so far, we've gotten our CPS file and the caseworker comes right out and says that your parents don't want you.
uh,
So, I without her being able to talk to us and they won't let us talk to her, have any visitation, zero, zero, not even any. Um, then finally we get to the point where she's going to college and I still can't reach out to her. After she's 18, I wanted to send her a basket, right
mhm,
away, just to say, hey, we love you, we support you. Is there anything we can do, to help you? I miss you, everything. And I get the police. I get
mm,
the police calling my husband from where she's going to college, which is in another state. It's a couple hours away. Um, Saying that if we stalk her again or if we tried, this is the only time we've ever tried to contact her. We don't know her phone number. The caseworker told her to change her phone number and not give it to anyone. Um, so I called the policeman back and said, we've never tried contacting her before, and this is the story. And then he was fine after that. Um, Christmas came, I bought gifts for her. I sent them over to our oldest daughter's house, and no word, nothing back from her. It, um, Essentially, the county helped her get scholarships and funding in exchange for not speaking to us ever again, I guess, for destroying that relationship. That was their penance for how I guess they helped her to some degree. Um,
mm,
I don't even know what to say. It's like it's so wrong on so
mm,
many levels, uh, and so much more dirt has come out. And they're trying to gag this.
mhm.
I have a feeling that that's going to be coming. That's why you and I are talking because there's no
Well,
gag
yeah.
order yet.
Well, because this shocks the conscience
Absolutely,
on
and I
so
put that
many
in my
levels.
yep,
Mm-hmm.
right, and that's one of the criteria. Um, like I said, I'm not a lawyer, but I have done all this. I have an honorary law degree, um, but I've done all this research and all this case law, and I my eyes are probably permanently bloodshot because I've done
Mm-hmm.
all this case law for so read up and read and read and read and read about a case after case. It's a travesty in the United
It
States.
is.
This isn't just here. This is horrible across the United States. And I am floored that we are allowing this. It's
Mm-hmm.
legal kidnapping is what it
Mm-hmm.
is. And
Mm-hmm.
so I go to the board, the county board. It's our county commissioners. I don't know. Each state has a different title for them. They're
Mm-hmm.
board of supervisors here, county commissioners in other states, whatever. Um,
Or
they handle all the,
useless.
yeah, right. They handle all the financial things for the state. And I petitioned to get on their call and I record it, and they're kind of dancing around. Well, we're currently 500 and some $1,000 in the deficit due to out of home placements.
Oh.
With how much more that the feds owe us for funding and blah blah blah. And come to find out, the county is $600,000 in the hole. Now, I would think that most other taxpayers like me would want to know
Mm-hmm.
that they're
Mm-hmm.
stealing kids and then billing the county, and the county commissioners are going, whoa, how are we going to pay for all these hours, because these caseworkers are hiring all these attorneys who are now billing hours out, and
Mm-hmm.
they're handing out paychecks right and left to everybody for doing absolutely nothing
Mm-hmm.
in a case that doesn't need them in the first place.
They they
And
they
so
also piggyback attorneys is what they do too.
yes, yes, they do. Yeah. And it's a good old boy network. I mean, you get on their referral list and oh, so and so, I haven't used her for a while. And that's another reason you can't find an attorney in this area, because we're in a semi-rural area according to the charting on for Wisconsin. And all the attorneys, there's few in our county, but they all are retained by the municipalities already. So it's a conflict of interest, or one of their partners in the firm is retained. So that throws them all out. They can't help you then.
Mm.
It's hopefully if anybody's listening, you'll get a hold of me and help me. If you're an attorney, I could use some help.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yes, we did get that far. And I think, like you said, it shocks the conscience. And all of these things are just so
Mm-hmm.
absurdly wrong. I mean, it's not like it's just, well, could be maybe here or that, no, no, my case, the way what they've done to me is completely 150% wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Violations of my First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth, Ninth, and
Ninth,
14th
14th. Mm-hmm.
amendment. uh, it's pathetic. And I think that's why the judges are allowing this to proceed and go forward, and you know not dismissing it right away. And
Mm-hmm.
read it has got to be just disgusting, an eye opener. And I can't believe that the governor and everyone else, you know they just blew me off. The attorney general, I said, this gal violated law. Here's the
Mm-hmm.
statute where it says you can't call yourself a social worker, and here's where the officer reported that she did that just to withhold our child from us. And
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, we don't go after our own people. Well, what the hell? What are you doing then? you know, what do you
Right.
mean your own people? She's not your
Oh.
people just because she's hired by the county. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I'm like, I thought I didn't think the state was like this, but it's Wisconsin is really something, and I need, you know, I reached out to the ACLU and heard anything from them. We do
Mm-hmm.
have a family friend who's an attorney, and he's, told me a few bits of information and things like that, but he's definitely not a family attorney and not a constitutional law. So it's uh, it's been a challenge. All I can do is all I can do. So I'm just doing everything I can. I do have a friend who is um, a whistleblower, a DCF whistleblower in Washington, D.C., and has 15 years of creating policy and doing all kinds of great things that actually do help kids.
Mm.
Um, and she volunteered to be a witness, at the trial. And so I'm pleased about that. I mean, it'd be a slam dunk for any attorney, probably, that
Right.
steps in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, that it's wrong, and they destroyed my relationship. you and I have both shared that. We've gotten
Mhm.
on some group messages,
Mhm.
some PTSD anon groups and things like that. But here again, I can't afford and I don't have the time to go to counseling. That's rough because I'm still helping my husband and my
Mhm.
our daughters have just abandoned us, at the hands of this caseworker. That Mother's Day card I got from her was the last card
Mm.
I've gotten. No Christmas, no birthday,
Mm.
no nothing, as if I'm dead.
I'm so
And
sorry.
yeah, oh, it's not your fault. It's not.
Oh.
And I've tried everything. I really have. It's alienation. I've studied up on parental alienation, you know that, and
Mhm.
it's a real thing, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be at the hands of an ex or a
Mhm.
spouse.
Right.
Alienation is anybody that's close to your child can
Mhm.
alienate them against you, and
And I think these caseworkers play a major role in that as well,
absolutely.
because, we had a caseworker actually hug my son, and he had told me he didn't want her ever touching him.
Oh my God.
And then I
So
looked it up, and technically, these caseworkers aren't allowed to lay hands on these kids.
right, right. Yeah, yeah, without a reason or
Right.
permission. Yeah. Uh, that that's
Weird.
sickening. How
Yeah.
old was he when she did that?
Oh, yeah, I think he was maybe 15 or 16.
Yeah, they don't want to be touched at that age anyway by
I know.
anybody. Ugh.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I know it's an abuse of power on
it
their behalf.
is.
You have these people that nobody ever challenges them because nobody wants to. Let's face it, most people that are targeted by CPS are usually people that are low income, they're struggling families, they're just trying to get by. um, they're working two jobs, whatever,
Mhm.
what have you. So they
Mhm.
don't have the means or the knowledge even to go get a
Mm-mm.
lawyer and fight this. So CPS is just runs amok
Oh,
everywhere, and they are
yes,
able to
yes.
do whatever they want to and say, and well, I don't like you, so I'm going to file this case, and
Mhm.
you know, ridiculous.
Well,
I'm
we had
swearing now, but
well, no, you're allowed. That we had a caseworker, we were in a meeting, and she got ticked off, and she got up to leave, and she said to my counselor, "That woman lives better than I do." "Oh, so is that reason for you to make my life hell? Because I
sure.
worked hard to become a nurse, and you didn't?"
Yep, absolutely. According to the DCF policy that's unwritten, evidently, it's you know, and I feel for DCF. I'm not going after DCF per se. I'm going after the people that wronged me.
Mhm.
That's who I'm going after because I know I'm going to give this disclaimer from working in my other state, my home state of South Dakota, and dealing with CPS clinically. There are some great people. I never had an issue there. Every single caseworker I talked to in South Dakota was wonderful. They're great people. They actually were there for the kids and they were there to help them, and I never had an issue. In fact, there were times where they sent the child back and I was thinking, hell no, they don't, they shouldn't go
Mhm.
back there. So it's not it's widespread in that there are these random pockets of infection in different places, these toxic people
Mhm.
that are not good for kids. They're brainwashing, they're doing paying them off, bribing them, and they're at a vulnerable time in their life. This will affect my child relationship and mine for the rest of our lives. And
Mhm.
you know, I, I'm so hurt and disgusted, and that it'll never be the same. I lost that innocent, relationship that I had with her, and I was robbed of the last few months that I could spend time with her. And we had plans to go to, water park and all kinds of
Mhm.
stuff. And that's the last day I was talked to her. So you can't tell me that she all of a sudden overnight decided that she hated me and never wanted to talk to me ever again.
Mhm.
And all the way up to that point, I have texts and thank you, mom. I love you. Here's where I'm
Mhm.
going. This is what I'm doing.
Mhm.
Um,
So
I don't believe it.
what they did was they just cut off contact and then put her with the older daughter who probably proceeded to brainwash her like a cult.
Right. Yeah. And then, not to mention, it didn't stop there. when she did go get her 2 weeks later, the caseworker came back to get her after we went to try and pick her up that night, and then we were denied. Well, the caseworker came then while she was on this supposed police hold and brought her back to Wisconsin illegally, basically, because she didn't have custody of her. There was no change in custody, and she didn't notify us, and placed her with foster parents before we even had a temporary custody hearing. She was at the foster parents' home at the hearing that day. They did not ask her anything. They didn't ask her to talk. She was there. The only thing the judge asked her that day was if she was happy, getting ready for school, for college, and to congratulate her on being a good student. And despite everything, what do you mean despite everything?
Oh,
What what do you mean despite it? We weren't allowed to talk. Number one. um, my husband had to interrupt the judge at the end to say, "Hey, can I say something?"
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Which he was allowed to speak, but it didn't make any difference. The judge, minute he was done, rubber stamped it. Nope. And gave us a lecture on what poor parents we were and how our poor parenting was going to affect not only our children but our grandchildren, and we really need to rethink our lives. And
Oh my
like, wait,
God.
what? You don't even know anything about us. You don't,
Right.
I'm like, what?
How old was he, do you think, that judge?
Yeah, between 65 and 70. He
Yeah,
just
that's what they are.
retired,
Yeah. Yeah.
retired
Well,
right
I
after
I
that.
I had one drop dead, but still that wasn't good enough. I mean, I could
Mm,
never, because everybody knew everybody,
right. Yeah.
you just couldn't get
Um,
anything done.
I the thing about it too is the director, where I sent my first complaint to, the director of the county
Mhm.
mysteriously disappears also. He
Hmm.
is no longer there. And there's nothing about it. It's just all of a sudden he's not there anymore, and they have a new director. And then I find out he's still working in the county. So I don't know what happened there. Nobody will tell me. They redact half of the files, so I have no idea what's being said, which I'm gonna have to get a court order to find out.
Mm.
um, but the thing about it, my dad always used to say, my dad was a deputy sheriff also, and he used to say, as long as we have faith, as long as the people have faith in one out of the three branches, we'll
Mm.
be okay. So
Mm-mm.
you have your three branches of government. You have your judiciary, you have your executive or your president, and then you have your legislative or your Congress. So you have president, Congress, judges. As
Yeah.
long as the people have faith in one of them, we're okay.
Or
Well,
not.
I think people are losing faith in the judiciary,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody trusts Congress. I mean, give me a break. Or the president, come on.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're in trouble in this country, and unless we band together, God bless us all. I don't give a crap if you're a Republican or a Democrat unless we band together and find some common ground and stop all of our rights from being stripped from us
Mm-hmm.
and get over this petty crap. We're in trouble. We're in big,
Mm-hmm.
big trouble. Um, I do a podcast too,
Mm-hmm.
and I talk to other whistleblowers, and it's amazing. I,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of sad. I feel sad for our future in this country unless we become Americans and band together and do something about this.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to have
So,
so many mixed up kids that don't know how to treat other people. And this is going to perpetuate the problem further, because if they can't respect their parents, they can't respect authority.
right. But they don't have to, Marianne. That we've raised
Mm-hmm.
these kids, it is partially our fault. I'm going to say this. It is partially our own fault because we raised them to be independent thinkers, and you don't need this, and you can have whatever you want. You can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking at us as displaced people because here, I saved tens of thousands of students from being in lifelong debt from college, from a for-profit college, um, that they would never get out of. They would never get out from under that debt if they would have stayed in that boat. And they had no degree that was basically worth it to pay for it and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you have what I've read some statistics. 1/3 of kids are still living at home up
Mm-hmm.
until the age of 30.
Mm-hmm.
30 years old, and still 1/3 of them are still living at home with their parents. And so you have them, they're displaced. They don't know what end is up. They've never taken care of themselves. They don't have any confidence. So who
Mm-hmm.
are they going to blame for all their woes in life?
Mhm.
Well, who's the only people that are in front of them every freaking day, you know? Um, Now it becomes the parent. Well, if you would have done this better, I wouldn't still be living here. And if you would
Mhm.
have done this, then I wouldn't do that. And then my friend says, I don't need toxicity people in my life. I don't need to have you in my life. I can have whoever I want to in my life.
Mm.
And it's just devastating because they don't understand. It's an emotional immaturity.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
don't understand how it affects the parent. You know, until you are a parent, you don't, I would never do anything like that to my parents.
Mm-mm.
And my mother, was not nice to me growing
Mhm.
up.
Mhm.
She was very hard on me, and she's part of the issue with this too. And but she's still my mother, and I still would never do something so horrible to them.
Mm-mm.
Um, and I read other, you read the other moms too, and it's heartbreaking
Mhm.
to read these people that have been estranged from their children for 10 years and they don't know why. They've never
Mhm.
been told why. I've never been told why. I have no idea why my daughter would do that other than money. She wanted money.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, we've given them everything. We spoiled them actually is probably, and I take responsibility for that too. I was the police officer. I was the policeman. My husband was daddy permission. Oh, just ask dad. He'll let us do it. Just ask dad. He'll let us go, whatever. And mom's the mean old mommy. I remember one of
Mhm.
them saying, and I'm
Mm.
like, so now I'm paying for it because now all this is directed at me. But,
Well, I don't think
um,
because you've been kind to your child, you should have to pay for anything when they're behaving like this.
right.
This is a new breed of entitlement.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
It,
is.
it really is. Because, I always worked with the kids. If they wanted something, it's like, well, you pay half, I'll pay half. If you
Yeah.
want that, mow the lawn. you
Right.
know?
Well, right. Well, you tried to teach them responsibility and chores. I mean, we all try to do that. But I suppose your ex was very permissive too, and just let him do whatever and run whatever, and
Well, you know
um,
what he was doing, like, apparently what I heard over there was, he ran a pretty tight ship and they had to do
oh,
chores and this and that.
good.
And I mean, these were good kids. If you said, "Hey, can you mow the lawn or pick up the leaves?" They readily did it, you know, and I'd pay them something for it, for doing their, labor. So, I don't know. They said that I was, oh, how they I don't know how the court worded it, but I was like, just, I can't I'm so sorry, I can't even
Like
think right now.
like authoritarian, or you
No,
just like
he
went
he
along with whatever,
they said that he was the authoritarian and I was the one that just, let everybody do as
like
they w well,
lazy
but the
parenting,
thing
or
was,
just yeah.
it wasn't like laziness, but it was like, I just let them live. And
Oh,
they,
okay.
like if they wanted to stay up, however, not on a school night, you had to be in bed and lights out at 9 p.m., but
Hmm.
on the weekends, 11, I was just very, you can come and go, just let me know where you're going. My kids were
Right,
older, of
right.
course. And I, you know, discipline wasn't a big issue because they weren't being bad.
Exactly. And that's what I want to say about my kids were great kids. And we told them right and left, and I'm sure you told your kids the same thing. As long as you're good, I don't care. You can make your own decisions as long
Mm-hmm.
as they're good decisions. And as long as you're not getting into trouble, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to let you have that ground to be able to do that. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, you kind of beat yourself up. You don't kind of, you beat yourself up. I've been through so much with
Mm-hmm.
this stroke and income and just struggling, and then the CPS bull, and the community. They've talked to people in our community, and like obviously I don't care what people think in my community, but
Mm-hmm.
even friends and family look at us sideways, and I sit there and think, come on, you've known me for 25 years. You know that we would never do anything. I can't even remember a time I spanked my kids. I don't, I just can't even, or neglected them, or they've never lost any weight. They look the same. They're healthy, beautiful girls. I I sit there and
It's
how
that
can
cancel
people just go
culture.
with that?
It's
Yeah,
that cancel culture. These people just, I guess, are spoon-fed lies, and they just sit there and get patted on the head, and they just go along and believe these lies, and they can't think for themselves. This is what the problem is with society. No
yeah,
one can think for themselves.
that's right. Or investigate, or
Mhm.
even have the common sense to say, hey, wait a minute. Hey, wait,
Mhm.
you know, where's the evidence here? I know Heidi. I know that she wouldn't do something like
Mhm.
that. I know, but nobody, I mean, everybody's first on board to be kill the messenger. Kill the
Right,
messenger.
right.
Oh, the whistleblower is the one that's to blame. No, the
Mhm.
whistleblower is the one that's trying to do the right thing to help you and me and everyone else. It's like we go after the wrong people. Um, so it's
Well,
been devastating that way. I don't
mhm.
know.
If you could look back, I mean, like I told you before, I just wouldn't let them in.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't let them in. And I would give that advice to every single person whether you're guilty or not, do not
Mhm.
let them in your home. Get
Mhm.
a hold of somebody that can give you legal advice or at least spiritual advice, somebody other than them.
Mhm.
Um, and definitely you can show them your kids. And you do need to show them your kids. And everything points to that. If they come knocking on your door, you can say, here, look in the window. This is my child. And they're doing absolutely fine. And have your child wave at them and say, you're not allowed to come in my home.
Mhm.
And that way there's nothing they can do. Truly,
Mhm.
they saw that the child was okay and the child wasn't. They can and they do go and talk to them at schools
Mhm.
alone. So I would tell every parent out there, make a mandate, write a official note to the school saying you do not allow, do not give permission for them to allow anyone to speak with your child without you being present.
Mhm.
um, because otherwise it's a free for all. They can catch your kid at school, they can
Mhm.
talk to them
Oh,
without you being
yeah.
there,
Multiple
and
times. They
and
won't
they're
leave the kid alone.
yeah,
Mm-mm.
and they're manipulators.
Mhm.
These people know, they know what to say. They know exactly how to word and twist everything around to make
Mhm.
it sound like you're the biggest monster ever. And they are not there to do a fair investigation by
Mm-mm.
any means at all.
Slipshod, slipshod.
They didn't talk to anyone. My neighbor who lives right across the road from us, he's an 80-year-old guy. He's kind of cantankerous, but I love him. He's kind of cute. He wrote a letter saying, I watch everything that goes on over there. He actually put that in the letter. It was kind of cute because he does. He kind of watches them. We mow his yard and help him out and things like that. But he said, these are the nicest people I've ever lived next to,
Mm.
and blah, blah, blah. She didn't contact anyone,
Same here.
anyone,
Mm.
no one.
Apparently, this is their MO, which is modus operandi.
Hmm. Yeah.
Now, mm, now, with you running a podcast, if someone wants to contact you, how do you, or do
No,
you not want to be contacted?
no, I want to be contacted. I
Okay.
want anybody, you don't even have to live in Wisconsin. If you have a CPS case and you are completely innocent, you're getting railroaded, call me because I need help. Can use you. You can use me as a witness. We have to band together somehow. And you can contact me at no stop Heidi all together. So NOSTOPHEIDI at gmail.com. So no stop Heidi at gmail.com. And I told you why they call me No Stop, right? Did
Oh,
I tell you
yeah.
that, Marion?
Yeah.
Yeah. The executive producer of CBS, I was on CBS Whistleblower, and then they hired me as an associate producer for season 2. Um, just said, "Oh my gosh, Heidi!" And this is way before any of this happened. You are the unstoppable Heidi Weber. You just do not give up. You just keep going, going, going. And so
Hmm.
it just kind of somehow got shortened to No Stop. So
Oh, I
it's kind
love
of
it.
funny. I know I
Love
love
it.
that name too. I didn't at first. I was kind of like, God, I sound like a total, and I'm not. But
Yeah.
yeah, I totally am.
Yeah.
I kind of am. I
You have
own
to
it now
be.
anyway.
You have to
Yeah.
be.
Well, I said, this lady, she messed with the wrong mama. Because I can tell you, I am going to make sure that at least I'm going to do as much as I can to make these people accountable for what they've done to me
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
stop them from doing it to anybody else. So get a hold of me. My podcast is called The Whistleblower Revolution. I talk to attorneys, get to hear cool stories, famous whistleblowers. Um, and it's at whistleblowerrevolution.com. And we're also picked up by all the same wonderful, lovely people that Marianne's podcast is picked up by. So iHeartRadio, Pandora, blah, 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 Google, Apple, blah, blah, blah. So
You're all over, definitely. Well, hey, don't jump off, okay?
I won't, I'm here.
Okay. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again in the future with Heidi and other guests for exciting episodes. Thank you, Heidi, for this information. I'll have you back on to update us again.
Absolutely. Get a hold of me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.